Excellent. So I am going to welcome you back to the Wellbeing Economy Talk for May and introduce Simon Tysos, who is today's chair, and he'll be introducing our speaker shortly. Simon is our advocacy and movements lead at the Wellbeing Economy Alliance, and I'll let him share a little bit more about today's WEAll Talk.
Thanks.
Over to you, Simon.
Thanks, Tobile. Warm welcome to everybody for this talk today. These talks we do on a regular basis to go deeper into some of the themes that are central to and connected to the ideas of a well-being economy. And these are opportunities to connect with, dive deeper into those themes and engage organically on them. So welcome everyone, and particularly to Valerie Bichelmeier, our speaker today from Make Mothers Matter. And the talk today is on putting care at the heart of a well-being economy. And I'm not going to mansplain anything about care, so don't worry about that. But I do want to make a couple of references about what do we mean by care and why this is important for a well-being economy. And open up with a quote from the Global Alliance for Care, which is, we are members of this Global Alliance. Make Mothers Matter, also a member of the Global Alliance for Care, which is a multi-stakeholder alliance. And to understand what we're talking about when we talk about care. And care work consists of the activities undertaken to ensure the day-to-day well-being and development of persons from various perspectives: physical, economic, moral, and emotional. As such, it ranges from the provision of elements essential to human life, such as food, shelter, sanitation, cleanliness, health, company, and a healthy environment. And actually, very recently, Tim Jackson, one of WEAll ambassadors, in a book, published a book called The Care Economy. And he lists his understanding of care as care for the young, care for the elderly, care for the sick and the faint of heart, care for our family, care for our community, care for our home, care for the material conditions of life itself. And of course, it would definitely include care for the planet that sustains us, care for the climate, care for the soil, care for the oceans, care for our world. As such, and I continue with Tim Jackson, care is synonymous with and inextricably linked to the idea of well-being. And as Tim Jackson states in the introduction to his book, if care is about maintaining and continuing a state of well-being, then of course the economy should be all about care, which is clearly a long way from what the economy is actually doing today. And care is often overlooked and undervalued, ignored by our current economic model. But it sustains life, it sustains families, communities, and the economy. And without it, we're going to grind to a halt. So suffice it to say that a caring economy is and would be an important characteristic and value of a well-being economy. So we're very happy to be able to host this talk today on care and the links with a well-being economy. Valerie is going to focus much more on the one dimension of this, which is unpaid care. But it's a real privilege to have Valerie with us from Make Mothers Matter to share her vast experience in raising awareness on this issue and in terms of policy influencing as well. But before handing over to Valerie, just a very quick intro on her bio. I discovered some of this only recently, despite working with Valerie over the last couple of years. Valerie has a master's degree in IT and telecommunications and has worked as an engineer for 20 years in different countries in Europe and Asia, and joined Make Mothers Matter in 2010, is the main representative at the UN in Geneva, and leads Make Mothers Matter's advocacy efforts to advance women's rights and gender equality, with a particular focus on women who are mothers, raising awareness of the specific discriminations and challenges they face and the injustices they suffer. And she is also the mother of 3 grown-up children. I think I'll let Valerie introduce a little bit more about Make Mothers Matter, but it's a very active member of the Wellbeing Economy Alliance and also of the Global Alliance for Care, and has been at the forefront of advocating for mothers' rights and recognition worldwide. After Valerie's presentation, we want to have a discussion on how a wellbeing economy could contribute to recognize, value, and support the unpaid work of caring, and to redistribute this work more equitably between men and women across society. So there'll be a chance to ask questions, make comments, and engage with Valerie on this subject. And with that, over to you, Valerie. Warm welcome, and thank you so much for agreeing to share your experience with us today.
Well, thank you very much, Simon, for the kind introduction, and thank you as well for the Wellbeing Economy Alliance for the opportunity to contribute to this WEAll Talk. I'm really thrilled to be able to do so. It's a great honor. And thank you also, Simon, for really summarizing the contents of my presentation so well. I'm gonna share my screen now, if I manage to do so. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So yeah, I will first do a quick introduction about Make Mothers Matter, which is the organization I represent at the United Nations. As Simon mentioned, I joined MMM 15 years ago already. And I have really, since the beginning, focused on this issue of care, which is very relevant to mothers. So the mission of Make Mothers Matter, I have written it fully on these slides, but in a nutshell, it's about advancing the rights of women who are mothers by raising awareness on the specific discrimination, injustice, challenges they face, but also on their key role as primary educators of children and their key role for social and economic development. Basically, we advance these rights through advocacy and communication. We are very active at the European Union, the United Nations, as I already mentioned, and also at the UNESCO. And we also federate a network of grassroots member organizations across the world, which is key for our legitimacy vis-a-vis these international organizations, and to really make the voice of these mothers across the world who live in very different contexts across the world. Just trying to go to the next slide. Here it is. So yeah, let's dive in the topic of care. Care, it's first about people, and in particular about the people who require care or support. And these include in particular children, older or sick people, as well as persons with disabilities. As Simon already mentioned, care includes both direct and indirect activities. Direct personal and relational care activities can include healthcare, tending for a sick relative, or non-formal education, playing with a child, coaching a teenager, or helping an older person. And care also includes indirect care activities, which are mainly domestic tasks, so including cooking, shopping, cleaning, all those activities that we do every day to sustain our home, as well as more arduous tasks like fetching water or collecting wood in the context of developing countries. Care is absolutely universal. We all need care at some point in our life, beginning during childhood, early childhood in particular, of course. And we will all be, or we are all caregivers at some point also in our lives. As Simon already said, I think we can also include as part of care all the community support that people give, like helping a neighbor or doing any other community task, and as well as caring for the environment. I think it's important to see care in a broader meaning. Care is absolutely fundamental for people and planetary well-being, and for the sustainability of life. It's exactly where it intersects with the concept of well-being economy. And then care can be paid, and usually it's underpaid or unpaid. And that's on this particular unpaid care that I will focus the rest of my presentation. So a few facts and figures about unpaid care and the economy. Globally, and these are figures of the International Labour Organization, 16.4 billion hours are dedicated each day to unpaid care work, and that is the equivalent of 2 billion people working 8 hours a day for free, basically. When valued at minimum wage, unpaid care work would represent a contribution to the global economy of at least 11 trillion dollars a year. So that's more than 3 times the size of the global tech industries, and represent 9% of global GDP. I'll come back to this figure later, because these are valuation based on minimum wage, but some countries actually use different valuation methods, and this puts the value of unpaid care work much higher as a percentage of GDP. So in any case, this is a huge economic sector. It's also absolutely vital for life, I would say, in particular during early childhood. It's really the foundation of child development and more generally human capability development. As Simon already mentioned, it really sustains families, communities, and it's the cornerstone of societal functioning. It's also the backbone of a market economy. Unpaid care work makes all the other work possible. But it's not considered as productive. It's not a market activity, so it's not in GDP. It's not financialized. As a result, it's invisible to policymakers in particular. It's taken for granted, and it's usually considered a free and unlimited resource. Another problem is that care has clearly a woman's face. So these are, again, ILO figures. Globally, women and girls do more than 3/4 of the unpaid care and domestic work, 3.2 times more than men. This is, of course, an average, which hides very important disparities between countries. This ratio goes from 1.3 times in Nordic countries, Sweden being the best in class, to 10 times in countries like India and Morocco, and even 11 times in Mali. In absolute terms, women work 4 hours and 25 hours per day versus 1 hour and 23 minutes for men. Again, this figure hides important disparities among countries, because in some countries, women can work up to 14 hours a day. And if we put these figures as working days, these represent 201 working days per year for women versus 63 working days for men. So this is a huge care gap, which has very important consequences for women, as it restricts their participation in the economy, in education, in politics, and so on. It's really negatively impacts their financial situations. This care gap is at the source of many gender gaps that we usually talk about, namely the labor force participation gap, the gender pay gap, the pension gaps. It's also important to note that this imbalance, this care gap, has important consequences on women's health and in particular on women's mental health. Recently, we at MMM conducted a survey across Europe, and one of the key results of this surveys, which was conducted in 12 countries, is that half of the mothers surveyed said that they suffered from mental health issues. So this is a huge, huge number. So we can say that this inequitable distribution of unpaid care work is the root cause of economic and social injustice for women, and that it lies really at the heart of gender inequalities. It's also, I think, important to note that not all women are equal, in particular, women of colors or ethnic background, or women who are migrants or refugees, and more generally, all the women who have lower economic and social status do more unpaid care work than women of upper classes. So they are also more impacted and penalized by these care imbalances. I think it's also important to be aware of the fact that most global crises exacerbates these gender inequalities, as they tend to increase unpaid care work. Population aging is a no-brainer. It drives so-called global care crisis and, of course, increase unpaid care work. But also the environmental crisis and notably climate change increase health needs. It also results in desertification that make people walk farther to fetch water or collect firewood. So it also increases unpaid care work. The debt crisis and all those austerities policies that are the consequence of a debt crisis really also as well really result in public spending cuts that directly impact and affect women's unpaid care work, just like conflicts and natural disasters, where public services usually collapse, and it's again women taking the slack. I didn't mention it on this slide, but economic crisis also, like inflation, which limits the resources women can have to pay for or to care services, also impact their unpaid care work. So basically, women are usually the shock absorbers of most crises. Yeah, I'm sorry, this slide is a bit crowded, but since I'm representing MMM at the UN, I thought I had to say something about what's going on the global agenda, and quite a lot has happened since I joined MMM in 2010. When I started work, basically this issue of care had absolutely no visibility and was really seldom discussed, even in gender equality circles. Then in 2013, and I haven't put it on these slides, but there was a report by the special rapporteur on poverty, which really framed unpaid care work as a human rights issues. And that same year, the International Conference on Labor Statisticians adopted a resolution that recognized unpaid care and domestic work as productive work, and mandated states to include this work in national labor statistics. So this was quite a major step, which is not often in the radar of feminists. Then in 2015, there was another a milestone. Unpaid care work was recognized as a key issue for gender equality with this specific target, 5.4, which you can see over there, which is basically about recognition, support, and redistribution of unpaid care work. There are some issues with these targets because its underlying indicator requires conducting some time use surveys, which are very complex and expensive to run. They are not perfect either, but the result is that not even half of all UN member states have conducted these surveys. So, and basically this target is totally off track and unfortunately quite ignored. In 2020, the COVID pandemic really brought care to the forefront. I think this quote by the Secretary General says it all. The pandemic has shown us who is doing the work that really matters: nurses, teachers, care workers. As we recover, we need to remember this. It's time to end the inequities of unpaid care work and create new economic models that work for everyone. I think it's music to our ears. And this pandemic also resulted indirectly in the creation of a Global Alliance for Care in 2021 at the end of a Gender Equality Forum by UN Women and the government of Mexico. Simon already mentioned that both the Wellbeing Economy Alliance and Make Mothers are members, along many others. The pandemic also resulted in 3 UN resolutions on care, the first ever resolutions on care. In 2023, the first resolution established an International Day on Care and Support on 29th October each year. A second resolution that same year adopted by the Human Rights Council recognized the centrality of care for human rights, which is also an important step. And then in 2024, it was the UN Commission on Social Development that adopted another resolution linking care and social development. So 3 important milestones. I'd like to also to mention all the work which is done by the UN Economic Commission of Latin America and the Caribbean. Basically, every 2 years they have a women's conferences that really created a movement around care. And the last conference, which took place in Buenos Aires in 2023, saw the adoption of the Buenos Aires Commitment, which set in motion this movement towards creating a care society and framing care as a right. So the right to care, the right to receive care, and the right to self-care. In 2024, the Pact of the Future was a bit weak of care, but at least it committed member states to develop beyond GDP indicators. I will come back to that in the conclusion. However, I have a feeling that this momentum generated by COVID is fading a little bit. For example, this year we have 2 major conferences, one on financing for development and one on social development. And all the outcome documents are currently being negotiated, and they are very weak on care. Basically, care is only mentioned in relation to gender equality. I'm also wondering about the impact of the current backlash on gender equality and how it will affect all the discussions we have on care. These are open questions. I don't have the answer. I just put them on the table here. A word on feminist economics, because it was feminist economics who first raised the issue of unpaid care work, and this was already in the 70s and 80s. I love this quote by Nancy Folbre, which I use and reuse. It says a lot. I just leave it to you. But basically, feminist economics called attention to the importance of non-market activities to economic and social development. In particular, I have to mention the work of Nancy Folbre, who questioned how we value children. Feminist economists also denounced the failure of GDP already in the 70s. I'd like to mention here the work of Marilyn Waring, who wrote this major book, If Women Counted, where she denounced not only the failure of GDP to capture unpaid care work, but also how GDP captures work which does not contribute at all to well-being. Quite on the contrary, we all know that. I think I will not delve into that. It is also feminist economists who propose to value unpaid care activities in so-called household satellites account to GDP. Although I'm not sure how useful it is to attend. To address this issue of unpaid care work, it's another feminist economist, namely Diane Elson, who proposed the 3R, the so-called 3R frameworks to guide policy making. So 3R for recognition, reduction, and redistribution. This framework was later extended by the ILO to also include representation and remuneration, but this is less relevant to unpaid care work. So actually, we don't use it so much at MMM. Recognition is, of course, about making unpaid care work visible. I mentioned time use surveys earlier. This is the main way to make unpaid care work visible, is to conduct time use surveys. But as I said, these are very complex and expensive surveys. It's about recognizing the fact that care work is work, valuable and skillful work. So once we have recognized this, we can give unpaid carers a status as well as rights, including social protection, training, allowances, care credits in the calculation of pensions. If we recognize care work as skillful work, then we can recognize the skills which are developed through care work. So these are all examples on different ways to recognize the value of unpaid care work, and there are many other ways. Reduction. At MMM, we don't like to use this reduce that much because we don't really want to reduce care. What we want to reduce is maybe the drudgery aspect of some domestic task. So we prefer to use the word support instead of reduction. So support by providing accessible and affordable quality public infrastructure and services. These are absolutely key, and they include water and sanitation, electricity and energy, or telecommunication, transportation, healthcare, education, childcare, and other care services. But if we talk of support, we can also add to all these services also some caregiver and parents counseling, support groups, parenting education, all these little services that help. And then the third R, redistribution, is absolutely key between men and women, obviously, but also across society. With everyone at every level, families, communities, the private sector, and governments taking their share of responsibility and costs. I think redistribution is really about embracing the principle of co-responsibility of everyone. Redistribution also includes policies like work-life balance policies for both men and women, including, of course, flexible working arrangements, support of unpaid caregivers by employers. There are many things that can be done by employers to support their employees with caregiving responsibilities, to foster the involvement of men caregiving, generous paternity leaves. And I think it's important to address all those gender stereotypes and occupational segregation that we see, to really engage men in care, not only unpaid care but also paid care work. And then we discussed it just earlier with Tobeli and Simon. I think the 4 days week is also one way to redistribute unpaid care work. So all these recommendations are valid, and they have really led the Nordic countries to become the most gender equal region in the world. However, I think they basically patch an economic system which fundamentally does not work for women. Here, I'd like to make a small sidestep to expose the similarities between women's unpaid care work and the natural environment. I think both women's unpaid care work and the work of nature are essential for the functioning of our economy. They are both invisible in our current economic accounting and modeling, and they are both taken for granted and considered as free and unlimited resources. So women and nature, the environment, we can say that they are both exploited by our current extractive economic model and system. So I think within the framework of a well-being economy, women's rights and environmental issues are deeply connected and could be addressed together. I think it would be interesting to that the environmental activists and the women's rights movement join forces around care. So coming back to our main topic, what is the relation between care and the concept of well-being economy? Well, it goes both ways. On one hand, care is really the foundation, essential to well-being. And on the other hand, a well-being economy can and must redress the inequities of both underpaid and unpaid care work. So I have mentioned in the previous slide the 3R framework. So to recognize and value care work, and to support and redistribute unpaid care work. In fact, I think a well-being economy must be a caring economy, and that care can be framed as a basic infrastructure of a well-being economy. So as a conclusion, and very concretely, I would like to propose 4 pathways to move forward. The first one is the idea of building cross-sectoral care systems. I think they could be the building blocks of well-being economies. We have example of such system which have been developed at national levels in a number of countries in Latin America, in countries like Uruguay, which was really a pioneer in 2015 already. But also we see other countries like Argentina or Chile or Colombia building a national care system. In a report I recently came across, I found a definition which I think is interesting to define what we mean by care system. And I quote, "A comprehensive care system can be defined as a set of policies aimed at implementing a new social organization of care with the purpose of caring for, assisting, and supporting people who require it, as well as recognizing, reducing, and redistributing care work which today is mostly performed by women, from a human rights, gender, intersectional, and intercultural perspective. I think it really sums it well. There are also some interesting practices at local level. I'd like to mention the care blocks in Bogota and the time use policy making in Barcelona. So just a word about the care blocks, because I think they are quite interesting. The idea is to offer all those services that unpaid caregivers need at a walking distance in a care block. So this has to do with urban planning, of course, but it's also about developing new services to support unpaid caregivers. Similarly, it's a different approach, but I think it's also quite interesting. Barcelona is really a pioneer in time policy. They've been carrying out time policies since 2003 or 4. They created a time use council. They adopted a time pact to promote a healthier and more egalitarian and sustainable use of time for its citizens. The city has also a person whose job is to work on time use. So this was for the first path. The second path would be to really build new narrative around care. In particular at MMM, we've been really fighting against the use of the word burden in association with care. I think care, even though it might not be always enjoyable, it must not be framed as a burden. It must not be always framed only as an obstacle, but rather as something valuable that really contributes to well-being, to the development of society and the economy. And it must also be framed as vital and skilled work. It can also be framed as an investment. And here I'm thinking in particular of early childhood development. There are many studies that shows that supporting early childhood developments, which means supporting the caregivers behind it, have a high return on investment. Similarly, supporting maternal mental health also has a return on investment. So this could also be a change of narrative. Care is also a value, the mindset that could be embraced or rather re-embraced by society. And here, I think, well, at least at MMM, we think involving fathers right from the start, right from pregnancy into caregiving, would be an entry point for changing mentalities and building more caring societies. The third pathways is that I mentioned earlier, the Beyond GDP discussion at the UN. I think it would be really important to participate actively in those discussions and work on to develop care-related indicators. I don't have the answer here, but I'd love to work together with others to develop these indicators. And lastly, we talk a lot about gender budgeting at the UN. And I think drawing from New Zealand's well-being budget, we could also explore care in budgeting, care budgeting maybe, in relation to the well-being budget, also a path to be explored. Moving to the conclusion, I would like to reiterate that care is everyone's affair. Every stakeholder must be involved in care in a new economy. And here I quote Susan Himmelweit, who moderated one of our events a few years ago. We should all be citizen carers. So basically, each of us at our level in our work and life can contribute to building a care society or a caring economy. So that would be my call for action, and I will end of this note. I really look forward to the discussion, and I would love to collaborate with other WEAll members to advance this topic. So thank you again, and please don't hesitate to get in touch.
Thanks so much, Valerie. That was amazing, amazing presentation and dive into some of the detail of why care is so central to the root cause. I think you said the root cause of our inequalities in our economic system and societies, but also our environmental decline, but also the foundation for a well-being economy, a caring society with the foundation for a well-being economy. Thank you so much for that. Some of those statistics, it's not the first time I've listened to a presentation on care, but they're still mind-blowing. You know, we're talking about, you know, a third of humanity, 2 billion people working 8 hours a day for free, the equivalent of. It's still mind-blowing that this is unseen and undervalued, not picked up on in GDP, and of course, mainly because it's largely done by women, and that's why it's invisible. And I think this is interesting that there are a few men on the call, but welcome to those men on the call, because as Valerie says, this is required. This is everyone's affair, not just women's. And thanks also for sharing some of the experiences and practices that, because often this is a sort of a conceptual theoretical conversation, and you've shared a lot of the practices and experiences that are actually happening in the world, not just in the Nordic countries, but also in Latin America. And this is really important to address, as well as the recommendations to address the conservative backlash that you've talked about. So we can open up for questions, for comments. I've seen some already in the chat, but please do put your hand up and come in. As Tobile has mentioned, there's a question here, and there's a couple of questions in the chat. Please do feel free to put your hand up and raise them with the microphone, because Valerie hasn't had a chance. She's been presenting, hasn't had a chance to see the chat or the questions. So yeah, please. Shanaz, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Shanaz,
No,
I'll have a go at that.
you have pronounced it absolutely beautifully.
Okay.
It's a Persian name and you pronounced it beautifully. Really, to you, Simon, and to Valerie, as you have pinpointed the value of care work, it's so obvious right across the board, socially, economically, within families, outside families. So it really begs the question, why? Why are we still in 2025, still having to fight for its recognition, simply even the recognition, before we even, connected to the care economy that we need, etc.? Is it a question simply of shifting mindsets?
It's an excellent question. Thank you, Shanaz. I think it's a lot about narrative. It's a lot about defining what we mean by the economy and what is important for our life, for our thriving. We've been told that the economy is about GDP. We've been told that we will only thrive if our economy grow and if we consume more and more. There's nothing about care in all this narrative. So we have to deconstruct that and build new narrative and fight with ideas that really only profits the elite somehow, especially the richest people, because who benefits from all this growth, all this GDP growth? Certainly not the environment, and not necessarily people. as opposed to what people try to make us believe. So that's that's element of the answer. I'm aware that there might be some other ideas. Please don't hesitate to jump in if you have some other views on this.
We have some other questions, Valerie, from Birgit and then Lucy, or questions or comments. It doesn't have to be a question and answer, but please do come in. Birgit.
Okay. Sorry, I thought Valerie has to come first. Yeah, hello and good evening to everybody. I really enjoyed being here. And actually, what is my question? And I'm following as well well-being economy, and I'm a critical economist as well, a happiness coach, and I deal with languages. And it's so important, the power of language and what it does to you. And I'm thinking as well how to change the gross domestic product. And yeah, my question is, nowadays there's always more war, and now in the States, all the changes with Trump. Is there any chance that there will be a new mindset, a new goals for immaterial goals, for example, no? If you would achieve immaterial goals and not being validated if you have material things, but immaterial things, for example, is there any chance that there will be, how can you change the mindset? So that's actually my question. And the funny thing is that that we are living in in a world created by thoughts of men. So the men, and the funny thing is, the men, they couldn't even exist without the caring of a woman. A successful man has always a woman in the background. So how real can that be? They call it so-called success, but without this pre-work being done by the woman, they wouldn't even survive one day. So that's actually ridiculous that all the world thinks about the economic growth, and those who establish the rules, they cannot live without women. So I don't know what if there is a chance to change it. How would you change this? So that's my question. I don't know if I was clear enough.
Another very good question. I don't have the answer, to be very honest. I think, as I mentioned at the end of the presentation, it would be very, very important to involve men by any way. And it's something we've been really promoting at MMM. We've also been working with Equimundo, who launched the global men care campaign, arguing that involving men in caregiving not only benefits women, but also in the case of fathers, it benefits children tremendously, and it also benefits men themselves. So it's really a triple win. So I think
that's it.
Could
if the wife is unhappy, how can be the man happy? So it depends always, if the woman has to do everything alone, and of course she gets aggressive, and it then is towards the man, and so.
Well, I think it's also a matter for women to make room for men, because we like doing things certain ways. So when men try to help, they are not always welcome, actually. So it's also about us encouraging men to be involved in caregiving. It begins with their children, which probably is the most enjoyable caregiving you can do. So once you are involved with your children and you build a relationship with your children, you realize or what it brings to you, and then you move further to other caregiving tasks, and you developed a different attitude. I think I don't know about others, but the fact of becoming a mother profoundly changed me. It developed empathy which I didn't necessarily have before. And I think it should be the same with men. When they care for someone, they become also more empathic. Yeah, I think it to me it's really an entry point. And then if you have men in the workplace who are also caregivers, then they are more supportive to caregivers, because at the moment it's really not the case. You see women who are pregnant being fired. You see women with children, being discriminated in wages, in promotion. So it's, I think it would change the whole system. I mean, at least it's an entry point. It's probably not the only way to go, but it's an important entry point to me.
That sounds very good. Very.
Lucy, please, your question or comment.
It's related to what we've already been talking about. I've worked in a number of different capacities with mothers and young children. I'm a therapist. I've worked in early years. And I think one of the things that I've noticed, and for me, it is a conundrum. It's how do we address this fairly, is particularly a lot of mothers of young children would like to be able to spend time caring for them, would like to be able to be the primary caregiver rather than put their children into daycare and so on. But they feel a huge pressure from society, sometimes even from their own families, from their partners, to go back into the economic workplace where they are earning money. Many would like to go back eventually, would like to work part-time. But what I see a lot of is they would like choice. They would like the importance of what they're doing, caring for primarily for children in the case of the people I see, but also sometimes caring for older relatives, caring for other people. They would like that recognized in a way that we don't currently do. It's like, unless you go back full time, unless you're doing the job that you trained for, unless you just take a short time off and go back, somehow you are betraying the system. And I see a lot of this, and I think that partly accounts for some of the mental health issues, is that a lot of women feel torn in both directions. They feel this love for their child, their need to be there, their need to shape another human life, which is the most important thing any of us will ever do. But the economy, society, friends, family say, get back in the workplace. And it's balancing that recognition of gender differences with ensuring an overall equality, which, I spend a lot of time thinking about it, but I wonder what your thoughts on this are.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. Indeed, there are many women who suffer from being forced to go back to work after 3 months paid or maybe not so well paid maternity leave. Some don't have a choice. They have to go back to work because of financial constraints. And I'm thinking here in particular of single mothers. However, for those who would like to stay longer caring for their children, especially during the early years, why not recognizing the skills that they developed through unpaid care work, and in particular all those soft skill or organizational skills that you developed through the work of caring. There is some work being done, and some companies, and I'm thinking here about Danone Italy. They developed a system by which they help mothers who return to work after maternity or parental leave. These systems help mothers becoming conscious of the skills that they have developed and becoming confident again. So this is a first possibilities, recognizing the skills that you develop through the world of caregiving. And I mean, you develop a lot of things without realizing it. If you just think about how we have to negotiate all the time with our children, try and negotiate with a 4-year-old, it is really hard work. It is a skill that you have to develop through raising, when you raise children. Another possibility is, why not, and it's linked to with skills recognition, why not considering this time off? I don't like the word leave because it's not holidays. This time you take off to care for your families. It should be a work experience. You should be able to put it in your CV, in your resume. And there are actually some fake company on LinkedIn that allows you to do so. And I've used it on my LinkedIn profile, for example. For the time being, it's only, a kind of idea that if companies did recognize those times as valuable experience for the company, that would change everything. And again, if you involve men would also ask to be recognized in the same way for those periods that they take off during paternity leave or parental leave.
No,
So
I agree.
again,
I agree entirely. I mean, like you were saying, becoming a parent yourself changes you, and I can vouch for the fact that what you said, you develop new skills, you develop new interests, and I think finding a way to channel that and also to widen awareness of that, so that people don't just think this person has taken some years off, therefore they are not used to working. It's this person has just had this completely different experience, and what have they gained from that, and how they
absolutely
more interesting and more useful. So yeah, well, thank you very much for that.
Thanks, Lucy. So we're on the hour, so we have to kind of close down, I believe, Tobile, or do we have a bit of flexibility to take the last question from Thera? Question for you, Tobile.
Yes.
I don't want to
is
cut anyone off. It doesn't feel fair.
Let's
No, it
hear
doesn't
from
feel
Thera.
fair.
Of course, those that need to jump off can jump off.
Okay, so yeah, respectfully, for those that have other meetings and stuff, but don't want to cut anyone off. So Thera, please come in with your question, and then we'll close with with gratitude to Valerie for her presentation and engagement on this. Thera, do you want to come in?
I'm really sorry. It's my fault. My presentation lasted too long, much longer than I had anticipated. So apologies for that.
Thank you very much, Simon, and thank you very much, Valerie, for your interesting presentation, and also for the contributions that others have done. But I think that it is not enough to work for redistribution of paid and unpaid work and ensure equality in both the paid and unpaid economy. And it is even not enough to calculate the amount of unpaid work that is all kind of trying to adjust the system. The essence of the problem is in the paradigm of the economic system. The image of the paradigm of the rational human being, the Homo economicus, is the basis of the whole neoliberal economy. And this is, whereas if we would take as the paradigm the caring human being in the whole economy, not only in the family, but also in companies, also in the governmental policy, if we would adjust our accounting systems to the caring human being, then we get a system shift. The world would look totally different. if we would part from the intrinsic value of the caring human being. And there's a whole literature available about from feminist philosophers who have worked out this caring human being in the ethics of care. But we have a system based on an 18th century utilitarism, do I say it wrong?
Utilitarian.
Utilitarian, that's the word, yes, thank you. Utilitarian image of the Homo economicus. And that makes that this economy is intrinsically excluding all the intrinsic value of women, mostly women. And therefore, I think we need this paradigm shift. Well, there is a lot of discussion about it already, but I think that is, I have myself tried to put in practice the caring economy in a company. And then it is almost impossible, because if you invest in biodiversity or in social development of groups around the company, this is not the tax office doesn't like this, because you have cost and you must make profit, because then they can take your taxes. And if you don't make profit and you invest in social or ecological issues, then then you get problems with tax, because the whole system should be focused on the principle, the universal principle, as Valerie correctly has said, and also Simon has said, that it has various dimensions, care. If this multidimensional paradigm of the caring human being would be the fundament of the well-being economy, then we can build on this a new model. And that, I think, would be the answer.
Thank you, Sarah. You want to come back on that, Valerie, with maybe some closing remarks?
Well, I couldn't agree more with you, Sarah. This is exactly the paradigm shift that we need. And as I said in my conclusion, I quoted Susan Himmelweit, feminist economic, who said, "We should all be citizen carer," and that's exactly that. It's about every individual being a carer. I couldn't frame it in any other way. So that's my call for action. Let's all be carer and engage others in care.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your attention and
thanks for
that contributing.
Yeah, thanks so much, Valerie, and thanks for all the work you do with Make Mothers Matter. It's wonderful to have you here with us. I love that last comment. I think it's a good way to close. Sarah, thank you for that sort of bringing us back to the structural importance of this. One of the challenges and the questions that have come up is, why is it so difficult to make this shift? And it is about a paradigm shift. And in a way, it's so difficult because this invisible, undervalued and work largely done by women actually subsidizes the capitalist system. It also subsidizes a patriarchal system. And that's why it's so hard to shift. That's the dominant paradigm. So it's really good that we close with that, because we are trying to build a transformation towards a well-being economy, and caring societies would be a central part of what we understand as a well-being economy. The caring societies would recognize and value care differently, and would recognize the role of women differently, and the importance of care also for the environment differently. And these would be central values in a paradigm shift towards a well-being economy. So at the end, we need a significant shift in our economic systems and in the thinking of our economies, which currently seek profit and growth and accumulation over social and environmental purpose. So well-being would become the goal, not GDP or growth. And that shift, I think, is happening very slowly, But as has been shared on the call, there's a lot of backlash, precisely because of the strength of the dominant paradigm, which part of its strength is negating the possibilities of the emergence of alternatives. And what we're talking about here is an alternative society, an alternative economy. Thank you so much, everybody. We will be sharing some resources with the recording and some additional resources. There's a lot there. Some has been shared in the chat, so we'll share that as well. And this isn't a one-off. This theme is so central to the ideas of a well-being economy. We will be continuing this in our ongoing conversations and across the network. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Simon.